Hello, woodpeckers. Well, if you're one of the few that can hear my signal in the morning on the Woodpecker net, and today is April 6, 2020, at about 8:15 a.m., you would have heard me talking and then abruptly drop off the air. Well, that's because I destroyed one of my final transistors while I was transmitting. And the reason that happened was I wasn't careful. This morning I was doing some experimentations on an SDR out of Australia, and I could monitor my signal, which is being very generous when I say that. I could see a line on the waterfall when I would transmit a CW signal, and then if I were to use SSB voice, I could just discern a little bit on the waterfall. You could see where my signal was, and you could hear my voice, but you couldn't hear what I was saying. But it was kind of like surprising to me that I actually could be heard to some extent in Australia. And I'm putting out 50 watts. Now, of course, if I were running CW, I would have been perfectly copyable. But on SSB, I wasn't. But anyway, I digress. So what I did was, I think I was at 7180 megahertz, or 7.180 megahertz. And that's what I was tuned to with my balanced tuner here. And when I went on the Woodpecker net, I remember that I didn't tune up again a second time. Also, to compound the problem, when I put this amplifier, this 50-watt amplifier in service, and I adjusted the drive control, which is that potentiometer right in the middle of your screen, I kind of marveled at the fact that I was outputting 70 watts on CW, and now that I think back about that, it's like that wasn't a good thing. I really should only adjusted that for 50 watts. I was actually driving it pretty hard to begin with. So I guess the combination of the extra drive and the fact that my balanced tuner wasn't quite tuned to 7.242 megahertz, and then when I went back and checked it, I was getting an SWR of 1.8 to 1 with that particular setting. Anyway, what happened was I actually shorted one of my final transistors, and here I'm actually, if I can find my probe, here it is. And we get to the okay, so what I've done here to find out which one of the two final transistors I shorted, I got my continuity checker across the what would normally be the 12-volt feed into the drains of these guys, and if I touch the source lead, right, that one is not, and I've lifted it off the ground, so I'm not hitting the ground. That one's fine. This one here is the ones that's shorted. Okay, and if I look at the resistance, that is essentially an open circuit with the FET not in conduction. And I'm going to the other source pin now, and that's showing 9.5 ohms from source to drain. So that's the guy. This one here is the one that's shorted. So now, fortunately, these components are 98 cents a piece. So normally when someone says I shorted one of my final transistors, they usually end up pulling out the checkbook to buy the new part. But in this case, I have a few spares, but I'm going to probably place an order with Moser to get another 10 of these, just on the safe side. So, home brewing is an adventure, and sometimes you end up discovering things. Luckily for me, it wasn't very expensive, and that's one of the primary reasons I build these amps with these inexpensive components. It's not so much to get a linear. I probably could have bought a linear for what I've spent on all the different things I've built, but it's the fun part. It's the fun factor. It's the, trying to learn things so you can do stuff, as Pete says on the Solder Smoke podcast, and just the joy of basically living the dream I had as a teenager, and bringing home old television sets home and taking them apart and dreaming of someday I'd know what each component did and I could probably build something out of one of these old TV sets. So anyway, thanks for watching. 7.3, this is N3 FJZ. Hopefully I'll have this amp back on the air for tomorrow's Woodpecker Net, and we'll go from there. Take care all.